Welcome to the Black Wealth Creator Podcast, where we uplift the Black community through financial education. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I just want to dive in a quick lesson on this fabulous book I just read, an amazing book called The Psychology of Money. In the book, it's written by, what's his name? Morgan Housel. So it's an amazing book. It really details how we think about money and just how that shapes us and how that brings us to how we are like when it comes to finances. And so I kind of want to break down that book in terms of what I got from it, not necessarily in terms of what he was trying to portray or whatever, but I just want to talk about what I got from the book. I hope you read it. I'm sure you'll get different points. It's a great read. I listened to audiobook, so it was about a 5-hour read and wonderful book. Point 1. Our view on money is as individual as our fingerprint. Like when you really begin to think about it, how I view money, how I actually view it, and how I might approach my savings and how I might approach my investing schemes or whatever I'm doing, that view on it is more individual to me than to, let's say, my sister, how she might do it or how my brother might do it, even though we might have been raised in the same house and, raised by the same mom. Like even though we went through that same thing, our view on money may differ. So there's just so many different nuances that makes us think about money differently. And so in the book, he brought out a point of like, you wouldn't expect a person who was raised by a struggling parent versus a person who was raised by a stable home and their dad maybe a banker. Like you wouldn't expect those two people to think about money the same way. And so I love that he brought that point out in the book, because he was just letting us know, like, there's no bad money decisions. Like we say they're bad because we know the knowledge and how money works and how, like, having an interest that high, how it may hurt your finances down the road. But there's really no bad. I mean, it's a decision made, this is just a decision made. We look at it and we judge it based off the numbers and stuff like that. But at that moment and in that time, that person thought that was the best decision that they had to have, or that was the best decision that they could make. So I really like that he brought that point out in the book. Like it's individual. Like and so even us and even me as a person who's trying to teach about finances, I have to realize that the person viewing this doesn't have the same background as me, doesn't have the same knowledge as me, doesn't have the same understanding of money that I do. And so I would never judge you. Don't do da. It's like, no, I wouldn't subscribe to that. But if you feel like that's the best financial decision for you and your family, then go right ahead. Like do it. And like, I'm just telling you, based on the numbers, it may not work out in the way that you think it'll work out, but who is me to judge? Like it still could work out for you. So I'm not even saying it like that. So it was just a refreshing point to hear someone in the financial field of education to just say that, like, man, I ain't got all the answers. And even if I had all the answers, you still an individual. So you do what you want to do. Point 2. So the concept of retirement is very new. And this kind of, I was like, what? Like in the book, he was saying, like, back in the day, like early 1900s, they would just work until they die. Like they would just work, especially like factories and stuff like that. They would just work and they die. Like they just work until they die. And so he was saying that, like, the 401k program that we know about, or Roth IRAs, like those things are relatively new when you compare them to like the banking system or whatever. So I actually did some of my own independent research. He mentioned some dates in there, but I went and looked at, like, well, how old is the stock market and how old is the banking system in the US? So the banking system and the stock market both been around since like the 1790. Yeah, I said that, 1790. So that's over 200 years ago, 1790. So yeah, that's been around a long time. So whereas the 401k and like Roth IRAs, the 401k program came about in 1978. Like my mom's older than that. So, I mean, like, and then catch this one. Roth IRAs came out in 1998. So it just lets you know, like, this whole idea of saving for later, this whole idea of personal finance to build in terms of like 401k programs and planning for retirement, that's not something that our grandparents they definitely didn't think about this growing up. So it's a fairly new arena here. And so that's why it's so important for us, especially us in our early 30s, even like in our early 20s, who are entering the job market, to learn about retirement and how that money really does add up and how that really does grow. And so how we'll be able to sustain ourselves in retirement, because as we all have heard and as we all know, like, Social Security, it may or may not be around when we retire. So especially with more entrepreneurs and I know they pay their taxes and stuff, but it's just a lot more entrepreneurs in the world, a lot more people just doing their own thing type stuff. So who knows if we'll even have enough Social Security left for us, for our generation. So that's why it's good to invest in your retirement. Point 3. Longevity is the name of the game. Like, when he brought this point out, I was like, whoa, okay, so longevity is the name of the game. It's all about how long you can keep your money growing in the market. Remember, we talked about the market, but it's all about how long we can keep our money growing in the market. It's not about making $1 billion and spending $1 billion. No, it's all about how long can you keep that money in the market and keep it growing. And so in the book, he was just mentioning like Warren Buffett, and we all know Warren Buffett. Like, well, we may not all know him, but if you don't know him, look him up. He's one of the richest men in the world. And Warren Buffett has, I think he's like 80 something, maybe like early 80s. But Warren Buffett has been trading stocks since he was like 10 years old. Like, think about the longevity of his money in the marketplace, or in the market, investing, gaining traction, gaining interest, investing, gaining. Like, he get a large chunk, so he put it all back in the market. Like, the guy's a billionaire, but he's been investing for 70 years. So almost every penny he's made, he's like invested. I'm sure he probably got some savings somewhere. I don't know the man's pockets, but it just lets you know, like, every investment, he might have put a percentage in savings, but for the most part, he's probably investing majority of it back into the market to continue to grow. So like that in and of itself is amazing. So I did some calculations that I did. I got this little retirement calculator that I created in Excel, and I'll link it. You know what? I'll link it in the link below if you want to. I probably like make it a little bit prettier and put it in the link below, put it down below. But it showed you like a present value, which is kind of like the money you got in there today. The annual investments, I got it at 0. Like, if you didn't make any investments per year, if you didn't make any investments, you started off with 100, or I got a couple amounts in here, but if you started out with this money, you let it go without putting anything in there. You just put it in the market, and the market's trending up towards like a 7% yield for you. And I got it in here for, like, if you leave it in here 70 years, and then how much money it'll show up in red, how much your future value would be. So I started with like $100,000. I mean, let's say you just put $100,000 in the market for 70 years, and it's like just growing at 7% annual interest. You're looking at $11.4 million in the bank. Like, let's say back 70 years ago, you put $100,000 in the market, let it grow, however you did it, whether it's in the normally stock market, whether you got stocks or, you know, like index funds, whatever. I think they're kind of young. I think they're younger than 70 years. But you put like those in the market, you just let it grow. And in 70 years, you got $11 million, and you start off with 100,000. So let's put in 10,000, because I mean, who really So that $10,000, let's say you had $10,000 70 years ago, you put it in the market and just let it grow for 70%. Because this is what I'm trying to teach you, like, and this is what he was saying in the book. Longevity, it's all about how long can you keep your money in the market. That's why you don't do like crazy things with your finance. That's why you don't go blow it on a Gucci bag, or blow it on some rims or something. $10,000 in the market for 70 years, we're looking at $1.1 million in the bank. Now, check this out. Let's be realistic. If you're looking at this video, you probably don't have, well, you could, if you're like in your 20s, you could have another 70 years, but let's just be realistic. Let's say you're 30 or 40. Let's say you got about 40 years until you retire. Let's say you got about 40 years until you retire. That $10,000, it went down a lot, because look, it hasn't been in the market as long. I went from 70 years to 40 years, and it went to $150,000. But that's just the $10,000 you put in the bank, 40 years ago. $10,000 you put, not in the bank, I'm sorry, $10,000 you put in the market. You let it grow at 7% interest. In 40 years, you got $150,000 in the market that you can pull from. Probably live off the if you put in a dividend type account, you give them 5% back or whatever, you probably could live off that. So it's just letting you know, like, longevity is the name of the game. You want to get in a place where you can put as much money into the market, and you want to diversify. We talked about all those types of income. We're talking about rental properties and all this stuff. You definitely want to diversify it, but you definitely want to end the market continuously growing. And then the last point that just really stood out to me, that just like savings. Like savings is just, he put this, savings is, he was just talking about savings and how important it is, and how we need to make sure we save and prioritize saving and stuff like that, because when those rainy days come, you won't have to make a bad financial decision if you got savings over there. And so he was just saying, even in his own, like, he knows a lot about money, which is bringing me back to my first point, kind of. He knows a lot about money and how it works and stuff like that. But he said because of his personal comfort level, like I said, everybody's individual, he tends to save a lot more than what's recommended. Like, if all the financial experts are saying you should save 20%, he saves about 30 to 40%, because he's like, I just don't want to ever be in that spot where I can't do something if I need to do it. And so that's what so going back to savings and like the importance of it, that's when you're going to skip and not have to worry about those financial decisions. You don't have to get a loan with 25% interest. I mean, you can use your savings. You can do those types of things if you have a good savings. And so the thing that he said that really just stood out to me when it came to saving, he said savings is the gap between ego and income. The reason we can't save is not because we don't make enough to save. It's because we live above our means. We got the big house, we got the big car, we got the big clothes, the big closet full of clothes. Like, we live above our means, and we don't need all that stuff. So if we can check our ego at the door, then we can start saving more. Like, that's just a simple fact. Another thing he said is, if you want to increase your savings, raise your humility. Because a lot of us, our ego, like, if that ego, like, oh man, I ain't finna wear that type of clothes, I ain't finna eat that food, I ain't finna go to that place to buy food, it's discounted food, man, I'm going to Target. Like, Target, like, it's Target, bro. No, Target, I'm going to Target. No, bro, you going to Target. Like, be honest with yourself. Like, it ain't even like that. So realistically, if we can just check our egos at the door, we can really start to save. And when we save, we get to that certain percentage of savings, like, okay, because like Dave Ramsey, he said, get 6 months of expenses and stuff like that. Like, you build up your little nest egg or your big nest egg, however your comfort level is, individualism. So you might want to save up a year's worth of, you know what I'm saying? Because 2020 happened, and like some people lost everything in 2020. Some people had to deplete their entire savings in 2020. Some people had to go do some illegal stuff in 2020 to survive 2020. So 2020 happened, and that should have been that's a real eye opener to a lot of us. Like, bro, we got to save, or sis, we got to save. Like, so that was just a real catchy to me. Like, you have that savings built up, it's gonna take you a long way. I just really enjoyed that book, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. I listened to it on YouTube, but the link that I listened to, it doesn't work every time. So if you want to search it on YouTube, you might find it on YouTube. Like I said, it's like a 5 hour 30-minute read or something like that. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about what stood out to me. I would love for you to read the book and then come back to this video and like comment down below what stood out to you. So if not, just whatever stood out to you today, you can comment that too. So this has just been another episode of the Black Wealth Creator Podcast, where we help uplift the Black community through financial education. Remember, getting money is easy, but building wealth takes time and effort. Anybody can do it, especially you. Be blessed.